Hey everyone, it's Tom here from WTFFF 3D Printing Podcast and 3dstarpoint.com, and I've got something really exciting to share with you today. It's something completely new in the 3D printing industry, at least the fused filament fabrication 3D printing industry. So what I want to show you is, you can see up here, this is my little 3D printing studio. I've got a couple of 3D printers and I have over 50 spools of filament of different colors and materials. That's the reality of 3D printing. When you get into it, if you get into it at all, you end up getting a couple of 3D printers and you have all these different spools of filament. And the problem is, when these spools run out, you can see this one's almost out, you're left with this really large, heavy plastic spool, and you can't use it again. It's a completely disposable product. And unfortunately, many of the manufacturers, here's another typical one that is just about empty. The problem is, none of these manufacturers put a recycle symbol on these filament spools. They're probably made of ABS or some common plastic, but who knows? And I commonly every month have 6 or 8 of these that I've gone through, and they're just piling up, and I've tried to give them to my kids to do a craft project with, somehow reuse them in some way, but inevitably I end up getting left with many of these kicking around the house until I finally give up and throw them in a recycle bin, and I hope they get recycled. But as is true with most products that are plastic and not identified as to what plastic they are, they often don't get recycled. They end up in landfill, or they get chopped up and try to be reused as something in that sort of other plastic category. And so this is a significant problem. And also the different sizes of these filament spools that are out there are, there's so many different sizes. You can see from small ones to big ones that they're kind of hard to deal with. Well, I've got something really exciting to share with you today. So Village Plastics, which is one of the original and largest filament manufacturers in the US, out of Ohio, has come up with something completely different. What they've done is 2 things. They've started to distribute plastic in a coil that's not on a spool and decoupled it from the spool. And what makes perfect sense, because all of us into 3D printing love to print things, they've created your own 3D printable, reusable spool. And this system is designed completely to reduce what they're distributing in terms of plastic, not shipping spools anymore. You can take this coil and mount it on the spool and reuse them all the time. You can just, print as many of these as you need if you have a 3D printer that's large enough, or if you don't, you can actually buy these printed very inexpensively from another, from one of several different sources that Village Plastics has authorized and licensed to be able to print and sell these to you. So now, in the future, and it'll take a while for me to go through all this filament, but I would bet a year from now, there's not going to be all these different kinds of spools up there. I will have multiples of these, and this one I printed myself, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty, complex little piece, and you can see here, I don't know if you can see it in the light I have here, but this is actually created. Slant 3D is the company that helped create this new spool, and it's really a pretty ingenious piece of engineering, because you print one piece, you print this twice, and then you put them together. You just print them twice, you put them together, and you rotate them, and they lock together. And you do that, obviously, you want to put the coil in there, and I'm going to demonstrate that on another video that'll be on 3dstarpoint.com. And actually, the blog post for today's WTFFF podcast, where I interview Steve Gall from Village Plastics about the creation of this and the distribution of it, which now it is out and available. So if you are a 3D printer, whether you're a professional or a hobbyist or a student, And I really recommend you go and download this. And you can see here it has KVP, which is Keene Village Plastics, the people that have created this, and they're who I interviewed on today's WTFFF podcast. It's a really brilliant piece of engineering that you would go and not buy filament that doesn't have a spool in it, print as many of these spools as you need, and buy a coil of filament instead of on a disposable spool that can't be recycled very easily at all. And now you've dealt with the whole waste problem which exists in this 3D printing machine. It's kind of ironic because 3D printers are very well known for, you print objects of all different kinds and, many different sizes. Obviously, this is a pretty big 3D print that I've done here, but, you can do really small objects. And the great thing about 3D printing is there's really very little, almost no waste when you make something on your 3D printer. It really only uses the amount of material that it needs for the product, unlike many other manufacturing processes where in order to get some good parts, you've got to waste a whole lot of material. Well, this has sort of been ironic that you have these big spools when you use up your filament that have no recycle symbol and you can't recycle, and it ends up being a big problem. And I have too many of these lying around, so now in the future I'm printing all my own spools. Again, this is a really ingenious piece of engineering of a 3D printed part, really of any kind of engineered part, to make this so you can print this rather quickly on your 3D printer. You print 2 of them, you put a coil, you buy a coil of filament and you put it in on this spool, close it up, and then use it just like you would any conventional spool of material. And I think you're going to be much better off. And you can even, if you don't want to buy 50 spools like I would need for all of my filament, you actually can take the coil back off of the reusable spool to store it and then put it back on a spool when you need it. So if you have some colors like I do that I won't use in the next 6 months, you don't have to buy or 3D print your own spool for every single one. But I just think this is fantastic. Keene Village Plastics and Slant 3D for engineering this piece have done a fantastic job in solving a significant problem in the 3D printing industry that no one's really talking about. So please come to 3dstartpoint.com where you'll find a blog post for the episode today on WTFFF that is all about this new spool and what a game changer it is in the 3D printing industry. Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.